Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Eric O'Gray. Eric's story is incredible and he's doing some amazing work and helping so many people. So I'm excited to have him on to share his story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drkaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, also be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Eric O'Gray. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Eric O'Gray. And Eric's story is incredible. In 2010, Eric was 51 years old. He was 340 pounds at 5'10". His waist was 52 inches and he wore a 4XL shirt. And he had type 2 diabetes. His total cholesterol was almost 400. And he was taking 15 different medications. And it was just completely miserable with his life and just had no hope. And in a last attempt to avoid bariatric surgery, he met with a plant-based naturopathic doctor who helped him transition to a whole food plant-based diet and also advised him to adopt a dog. And his life would never be the same again. And Eric is now 180 pounds, has completely reversed his type 2 diabetes and other health issues. And he recently wrote a book about how going plant-based and adopting his dog Peety completely saved his life. And that book is called Walking With Peety. And he's been on basically every major news station and talk show talking about it. But I'm excited just to dive into his story deeper and just share his just amazing, inspiring story with you guys. So I know you guys are going to love him. And just Eric, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm extremely honored to have you. So just thank you.
Well, what a complete and lovely introduction, Dr. Casey. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm super excited to have you. I don't think the intro could give you enough justice for everything that you've done. But yeah, so, I want to jump into your story, obviously, but I want you to kind of walk us back a little bit further. So kind of walk people through, where you're from and then just kind of what your childhood looked like as far as like, your own health and wellness at a younger age, just so we can understand just how you've really progressed over time.
Sure, absolutely. And by the way, my dog Jake is on the podcast also. He's sitting right next to me with his nose about an inch away from my face, looking directly at me.
That's awesome. So
just wanted everybody to know that.
That you have a co-host over there.
Yeah, he's co-hosting.
That's awesome.
So I am from San Francisco originally, and I grew up in San Francisco in the 1960s where, it was like everything that you've ever heard about on all the Flower and Daisy kind of like shows that you've ever watched about San Francisco in the 60s. And so when I was growing up, I was kind of a pudgy kid. I was a little bit overweight, and I just kind of was never really athletic at all. I was always more sedentary than athletic. And so rather than want to go outside and play ball and do all these kind of things, I was much more inclined to sit inside and read and do various activities like that. Over a period of time, so, in between ages like 10 and 16 or so, I was pretty overweight, and my nickname actually at the time was Pudge. And then I went in the Army at age 17, the military, to kind of get out of the neighborhood. And I did trim up quite a bit in the military. And so I was in the Army until my early 20s. And I got out. And, as soon as I got out of the Army, I started putting the weight back on again. And I was at 25. My ideal waist size is 33, 34 inches. So at about 25, I was up to, low 200s. And then I kind of like progressed up from there. And I describe this as it's the three Oreo plan. Basically, if you eat 3 Oreos a day beyond your basal metabolic rate, that's about 180 calories per day. And just that doesn't really sound like much. It's really not much. But if you do that every day over a month, that's going to be over 3,500 excess calories. And as we know, 3,500 calories is about a pound of fat cells. Then over a year, that's going to be about 12 pounds. And then over a decade, you're looking at over 100 pounds in excess weight just by these tiny incremental things that we do on an ongoing daily basis.
Right. Because let's be honest, nobody's eating just 3 Oreos, right?
Exactly. And nobody uses just 1 tablespoon of olive oil or coconut oil in cooking, which is 120 calories also, and will have the same effect. So what I did was I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing, and I was on the standard American diet. So I was eating really fast food, junk food. Later in life, I had a doctor just tell me that I was on what they called the window diet, meaning that I would drive up to the drive-through and they would hand me my food through my window. And that's what I was eating, which is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So a key thing came for me at age 40. I went into a Nordstrom Palo Alto at the Stanford Shopping Center, one of the most high-end luxury kind of places that you can go into. And I'd always loved going into Nordstrom to buy my clothes because you go in there and there's somebody playing a grand piano and all the salespeople look like they're fashion models and athletes and everything. And so I went in there at age 40 and the man looked at me and I went in to buy a suit and he said, "I'm sorry, but our sizes stop at size 42 waist. You're going to have to go to a big and tall men's store." And so I was just stunned by that. Suddenly, I'd gone from being able to wear normal clothing. And one day I was told that I had to shop at the Men's Warehouse. And that was the first real warning sign that I got. Fast forward that to an additional 10 years. I'm age 50 years old and my waist is 52 inches. And this is the slow, insidious progression that I'm talking about. And let me just tell everybody how this works. See, it's not like you wake up one day and you're huge and you're horrified and you go, "Oh my God, I got to take immediate action." It's such a slow, insidious process. You don't even recognize it. Every day when you look in the mirror, you don't see yourself as slightly bigger than the day before. You don't really even see it over the course of a decade because it's such a small incremental change on a regular basis. So everything kind of seems normal, except that, it just seemed like this is what happens when you get older. Instead of having an oval face, it's all of a sudden round. You have difficulty moving. You're in pain. Well, this is naturally just caused by age, right? Doesn't this happen to everybody? And, and so that's what I thought. I never really paid any attention to it. But as I got older, I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker, in addition to getting larger and larger and larger. And how it worked out for me was my lifetime experience in going to doctor's visits was that I'd been to over 100 doctor visits in my life, and they had 2 common things. First, every time that I went in, the doctor would spend maybe 5 minutes with me. Rather than trying to sit down and talk to me and figure out what the underlying cause of my problem was, they were listening for the thing that I was complaining about most loudly on that day. And as I was talking to them, typically one hand would be holding a prescription pad and the second hand would have a pen. And based upon the meeting, they would write me a new prescription for whatever they determined my chief complaint was for the day, the thing that I was complaining about most loudly. So over a period of time, I built that up to about 15 different prescriptions. And these prescriptions were for everything from, I was taking daily insulin injections for type 2 diabetes, also the highest dose of metformin for diabetes that was recommended, 3 different antidepressants, high blood pressure medication, high cholesterol medication, and medications intended to alleviate the side effects of other medications. So it was I was just like a big chemical cocktail.
It's just so crazy. At any time, because I know at that time you were just obviously just doing what the doctor said. What was your mindset at that point? Did you just feel that was normal, or what kind of side effects were you having? Because that is a lot all at one time.
It is. But the crazy thing is, in high school and all throughout my life, I'd never received any kind of training on how my body worked or what I was supposed to eat. I was just doing the same thing that everyone else was doing. And there was really no difference. So nobody ever trained me on nutrition, or I didn't have any knowledge on this. Basically, I was trusting 100% of my health decisions to healthcare providers, healthcare professionals, and I didn't know any better. So I was taking no personal participation into my own health and nutrition. I was simply going with the flow, doing what everybody else was doing and taking their recommendations. So one day at a doctor's office, I went in, and at the end of each of those appointments, at the end of each of those doctor visits, they would always tell me that I needed something called diet and exercise, but nobody would ever define what that meant or give me any way to implement this mysterious thing about diet and exercise. This is something that I was supposed to know how to do or how to improve on my own, but I didn't. So I kept going to these meetings and kept looking for this diet and exercise, and I tried 3 dozen different diets in my life, really everything ever commercially marketed in the United States for diet, like, Atkins, Weight Watcher, Nutrisystem, South Beach, etc., all the way down the list. Even like Jenny Craig and everything I tried, and nothing ever worked. And what I found was on each one of these systems and programs, I would always be able to lose 30 or 40 pounds. And it would always be like this extreme thing. Yes, I'm going to do it this time. I'm not going to fail. I'm going to make it. And then I would get into this for about a month, 6 weeks, maybe I'd make it 8 weeks. And then I'd eat a plate of French fries and then fail. And then suddenly I would backslide. And then more quickly, like in a flash, I would lose all the weight that I'd lost and then some. And it was because none of those diets were a permanent lifestyle. Nothing was anything that I could follow to achieve sustained weight loss for the rest of my life. Every one of those diets was all intended to, like, if you want to have a beach body or a summer body, or you want to, go on a cruise, you're going to do this and you're going to lose some weight, and then you're going to just go wild after that, and then you're going to revert and gain it all back and be back in the same position that you were in the first place. So nobody ever told me what I needed to do to achieve permanent, lasting, ideal weight and health. And so one day I went into a doctor, and this guy just flat out, after he looked at my stats, he'd run a full blood panel on me and taken like all my stats. And he just said, son, what you need to do is you need to go out and purchase a cemetery plot, because you're going to need one pretty soon.
Wow.
And that was just frank advice. And, I've never been mad at anybody for being honest, as long as they're not being mean about it. And this guy was just matter of fact. And so I go, my God. And he said, you need diet and exercise immediately. And I said, yeah, I've heard that before. And so I started doing research, and a couple of crazy things happened. One day I was watching TV. Shortly after that, I was watching TV, and here Bill Clinton comes on TV being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer. And this was in August 2010, and I'll never forget this. And Bill Clinton looked better than I'd ever seen him before in my life. I mean, he'd lost weight. The bags under his eyes were gone. He just looked really good. And the interview was about some political thing, and Wolf just stopped it and say, hey, I have to ask you about the 800-pound elephant in the room. How did you lose so much weight, and why do you look so good? And he said, well, thank you for asking. And it's because I have been working with some doctors who have just written a book called The China Study, and they're involved in helping people to reverse heart disease and lose weight on a whole food, plant-based diet. And my ears perked up when I heard that, because I'd never heard those words before. In all the diets that I'd ever been on, nobody ever said anything about a plant-based diet. And so I immediately got on Google. And again, this was in August 2010, and I Googled Clinton plant-based diet. And in August 2010, Google said, no search results found. I swear.
That's so crazy to think about.
And if you do that same search right now, you're going to get about 30 million hits.
Yep.
That's how far we've come in 8 years, which is crazy.
So just getting that information was, obviously now you can get that information so much quicker, but you really had to really dive in deeper into all these resources, because it was harder to get that kind of information at that time, which wasn't that long ago, but it really is crazy to see how far we've come with that.
Yeah, but I was on a mission at the time because this doctor told me that I was about to die, and I believed him. And to me, this was a matter of life and death. I didn't really care much about living, but on the other hand, I didn't feel like I was ready to die yet. And so I really started calling all these doctors, and I said, do you know what a plant-based diet is? Do you know what a plant-based diet is? And I finally found a doctor in San Jose, California, Cupertino, California, and her name is Dr. Preeti Kulkarni in Cupertino, California. And she knew what a plant-based diet was. And she said, not only that, but that's what I do myself. And I said, wow. So I'm going to come in and see you because it's working for him. Maybe it'll work for me. Mm-hmm. So I went in to see this new doctor. And the crazy thing is, I expected her to spend 5 minutes with me and then give me a speech about diet and exercise and send me home with some new wonder drug that would, be a plant-based wonder drug or something. I had no idea what to expect. I honestly had no clue. And so I sat down with her, and she spent over an hour with me in an initial consultation. And in my mind, because I'm a huge fan I'm really fascinated by how systems work and how, especially economic systems, and how people make money. And I'm thinking, how can she afford to do this? And I asked her, and she explained. She said, well, I'm not trying to cure a particular symptom. I'm trying to determine what the underlying cause of your problems are, and then we can address that. And she explained it to me like this. If you run a faucet on the ground, the faucet is going to flood your floor, and you can mop that up until the end of time, but you're never going to cure the problem, which is a flooded floor. On the other hand, if you just turn the faucet off, you've cured the underlying problem. And that's what I want to do with you. I said, I'm all ears. Yeah. She said that if I did exactly what she said, within 12 months, she believed that I would be at my ideal weight and off all medications. And I was just stunned when she said that. And I thought at the time, is this lady smoking crack? I mean, how is this even possible, right? So I said, well, you know what? And she seemed to really care about me personally. And this wasn't like she was, trying to make money off me or sell me a meal plan or something like that. I mean, she really seemed like she knew what she was talking about, and that she cared about me personally. So in this hour-long meeting, she asked me all these lifestyle questions and stuff that I hadn't admitted to anybody, really, all my secrets. Like, I'd stopped going outside entirely except for emergencies or when absolutely required, so I didn't lose my job. I didn't have any friends anymore because I'd stopped trying to connect with people, and I hadn't had any friends in a couple of years, and I hadn't been on a date like with a woman in 15 years or more. I mean, I was completely reclusive, and basically I explained to her is because it's so damn painful to move, and it's so embarrassing, and it's shameful. I feel ashamed when I go outside because everybody's looking at me with judgment, and I just, I'm ugly, and it's just, I just can't live with the judgment. So I stopped going outside. I stopped moving around. I stopped really doing anything except for like laying down on the couch and ordering Domino's pizzas.
Yeah. I know in your book, that was a big part of your story because like, it was like your ritual, right? You would order 2 large meat lovers Domino's pizza and like eat both and for dinner, right? Like that's like where you were at that point.
Yeah. And that was about 10,000 calories per meal. So and it kind of worked like this, like an extra large meat lover special Domino's pizza is about 5,000 calories. So I'd order 2 thinking I would eat one that night and then one the next day. So I'd eat the one that night, and then I'd start looking at the second one, and I'd have like just a piece and then just another piece. And I go, well, damn it, I might as well just go ahead and eat the second one. So I'd eat 2 extra large Domino's pizzas in one setting, which is...
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. No, that's crazy. That's cool. And like, I love that. I think it's just really amazing that Dr. Preety just had that much confidence with you because like, if she didn't have that level of confidence to be like, Eric, I can get you where you need to be in 12 months, then, you wouldn't have that kind of confidence to actually believe you could do it. So I just think that aspect of it's super crucial to like your whole transformation. I love that.
Yeah, she did. So there were several things that Dr. Preety did that really kind of like, first, I really felt from her that she cared about me. And this wasn't just like a business thing, or wasn't just marking time. I really felt that she cared about me. And then I really trusted her and I believed her. So I thought, I'm going to do exactly what she says. So I'm not going to second guess anything. I'm not going to do this part way. I'm not going to substitute my own judgment. I'm going to do exactly what she said. And then she said that what she needed for me to do was to sign up for 6 months worth of weekly appointments. So basically, she took my insurance and I had like a $25 weekly copay. So she charged me 6 months worth of weekly copays at $25, right? And then, so that made a financial commitment in me that, because we talked about this, and she knew that I was the kind of person that if I paid for something, I was going to actually follow through with it. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And then at the end of that meeting, the other thing that she said to me was that, so she prescribed 2 things for me at the end of that meeting, a plant-based diet, and she told me to go adopt a dog from my local shelter. And so as far as the plant-based diet went, she gave me like a list of recipes for the first week and a list of what to go home and throw out of my pantry and what to go to the store and purchase and exactly what to go home and make. So rather than just tell me that I need a diet and exercise, she was telling me exactly how to achieve the diet. And for exercise, she told me to adopt a dog. And I said, well, why do I have to adopt a dog? Because I'd never had a pet before. And it just seemed like a lot of, do I really have to do this? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I'm prescribing a dog for you for several reasons. The first of which are you've become so reclusive that you stop going outside, and you need to have a relationship in your life. And if you don't have a relationship with a person, a dog will have a relationship with you. You'll form a bond with a dog that may be different than any relationship that you've ever had in your entire life. And until you have a dog and you've been able to experience that, then you don't know what you're missing. And so for that, and so she also said, it'll also force you to go outside, because a dog is going to need to go outside to, go to the bathroom and everything. So you're going to have to do that at least a couple of times a day. And the dog's also going to want to be walked. So by walking the dog, you're going to get exercise, you're going to go outside, you're going to be in the sunlight, and you're probably going to meet people on your walk. And then, you're going to have some interactions with some other people rather than just sitting in your apartment. So I said, okay, but I've never had a pet before. And, is it okay if I adopt a cat instead? And so she just looked at me really seriously and she said, well, have you ever walked a cat? And I said, no. She just told me, well, you need to get a dog. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do exactly what she's telling me. Mm-hmm. So I go home and I call the largest local shelter that I had in the area, which was Humane Society Silicon Valley. And this was in San Jose, California, where I was living at the time. And I called down and I told them that I needed to adopt an obese middle-aged dog so we'd have something in common. And so they said, well, we have plenty of those, and, come on down. So I did. And I talked to an adoption coordinator, and she spent about an hour with me, and she talked about everything that, it's like I was being interviewed by Dr. Peety again. They wanted to make really sure, they wanted to really help me to understand and commit that adopting a dog was a serious commitment, and it was like adopting a new family member. And it wasn't the kind of thing like you took one home on a tryout basis and then you brought them back because you changed your mind. This was like a lifetime commitment. So after, getting beaten with that for about a half an hour, I said, yes, it's a lifetime commitment, and I will commit to a dog. She said, okay, I have the perfect dog for you. So I'm sitting in the adoption room, and I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for my dog. And the perfect dog for me was a dog that was small, and it was happy, and it was good looking, and didn't shed, and it never barked, and it just had a really good attitude. And, it never peed or pooped in the house in the history of the dog, right?
Right.
And so that's what I was expecting, something like an 8-pound golden retriever. So I'm hearing this like really loud series of thuds come down the hallway, and these nails like clacking hard on concrete. And in walks like the largest, most out of shape, saddest looking dog that I'd ever seen in my life. And he was morbidly obese, and he had skin problems and he was missing patches of fur, and it was just like all red and everything. And his head was hung low. He'd seen better days, and he was just absolutely depressed. And he walked in, and the lady walked the dog up to me, and the dog's still looking down. And I look up at her and I said, "Well, where's my dog?" And the dog looks up at me then, and I'd never seen a clearer look, a more absolute look of disappointment in my life than on the face of that dog when he looked at me, because he was thinking the same thing, like, where's my person? And there's no doubt in my mind. And so the lady at HSSV, she looked at me, she said, "Look, from what you've described, there's no better dog for you here. You guys both got to work on the same things. And, I think that you're perfect for each other." And, after thinking about it, I couldn't disagree with her. So I went home with this dog, and the first thing I did was I renamed the dog, because his name was Raider. And if you know anything about Bay Area politics, there's an East Bay and a West Bay, and everybody on the West side likes the 49ers, and everybody on the East side likes the Raiders. And my friends and I were committed Raider haters. So the first thing I had to do for this poor dog was disabuse him of that name. And so I named him Peety, because Peety it was like when I was growing up, because I'm old, there was a black and white show on TV called The Little Rascals. And in The Little Rascals, there was a dog named Peety, and he was everybody's hero. And I'd never had a dog, but I figured if I ever had a dog, I'd want him to be like the dog in Little Rascals, and I'd want to name him Peety.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering, I was going to ask you how you came up with the name. I was like, well, maybe he just dropped the R from Dr. Peety, and she just got, renamed as a dog.
No, he was from the Little Rascals.
That's
so
funny.
Yeah. So Peety and I went home, and, I think he took his first elevator ride that day, because when he wouldn't get in the elevator. He thought I was trying to put him in a room, like at the Humane Society, like in a kennel or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the elevator door opened. And when I tried to push him inside, he pancaked out with his legs and arms and legs sticking out sideways. Uh-huh. So I had to drag him into the elevator by his collar, and it was really funny. So I got him into the elevator, and when we got up to my apartment on the 3rd floor, and the elevator door opened, and you should have seen the look of surprise on his face when he was in a brand new place, because he got into a magic room, and then the door opened, and then he was somewhere else, and he couldn't figure it out. I could tell that he was really shocked by that. So we get into my apartment, and for 3 days, we sat on opposite sides of the room. I sat on the couch, and he sat in the opposite corner of the room, and we're both looking at each other skeptically, trying to figure out what to make of this deal. But we started walking, and the first day I promised I would do exactly what Dr. Peety said. And the first day I walked that dog, we were able to make it about 100 yards and back, and we were both just in pain and exhausted. We had to take a nap after that. And we just went a little bit farther every day after that. And, we worked it up, and within a couple of months, we were going 2-3 miles at a time, twice a day. And then within the first week, he hopped up in bed with me one night, and we became best friends after that. He put his head on my chest, and we just bonded. I mean, he was in such bad shape that I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I started feeling sorry for him instead. And I just realized that this dog had nothing. And if I didn't get my own act together and do this for him, then what would become of him if something happened to me? And I couldn't let that happen. So I really became committed to this program. And I started doing exactly what Dr. Peety told me to, as far as I followed her recipes exactly, which she told me to exactly. I went back and saw her on a weekly basis every week. And then at the beginning of each thing that we did, meeting, she would weigh me in, and we would talk about what worked and what didn't, and fine tune my program and what I liked and what I didn't. And she'd give me cooking tips. And she was Hindi, so I actually became a fairly good Indian cook.
Eric, what were some of the struggles that you had, when you went in and you had to really sit down and talk to her about?
Well, It's kind of like everything. I was in pain and this was hard and, I had cravings and addictions. And, it's like she said to me, because one of the things we talked about was overcoming smoking and substance abuse problems and things like that in the past. And, she said, and it was true, transitioning from a standard American diet to a whole food plant-based diet is less difficult than giving up tobacco. That's a true statement. And anybody that's ever quit smoking will find it easier to completely transition everything you're eating than it was to quit smoking. So if you've already quit smoking, or if you've overcome an alcohol or substance abuse problem in your life, you're well trained to transition to a whole food plant-based diet. This is easier than what you've done successfully in the past. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And so that, and just really the problem was I'd never cooked before. I was 51 and all I knew how to do was boil water and use a microwave.
And the window diet, right?
Yeah. And have people deliver stuff to my door. So she said, that the key to success, to long-term success in making this work, is being personally involved in your own health. And being personally involved in your own health requires doing your own shopping and doing your own cooking, not signing up for meal plans or boxes of things that come to your door or whatever, but going to the grocery store and seeing just the wide range of plants. And I was living, as I said, in San Jose, California at the time. I had a Filipino supermarket. I had a Chinese supermarket. I had a Mexican supermarket. I had all these different specialty supermarkets. And really, so I went on this weekly quest. Part of my game was to go out and make something, find a vegetable that I'd never seen before in my life, and then make it using a recipe that I'd never tried before. And it became a fascinating thing for me and something that I really enjoy doing. I mean, there are over 20,000 edible plants on Earth. And up until that point in my life, this is a true story, I'd probably only eaten 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
Tomatoes and potatoes. And, I didn't eat anything green at the time, or it's just how it was. So she taught me how to cook and how not to burn things. In my book, I talk about setting the fire alarm off in my apartment building and all these various things. But, after I really tried, because I wanted to live, and I wanted to live for this dog because his dog loved me so much. And his dog, I was his only hope and his only chance. He looked at me like I was the greatest person to ever walk the planet. And he gave me confidence that I'd never had before. And so I decided to become the person who he thought that I was. And I just knew that I couldn't let him down. And I mean, I took the dog to the vet too. And the vet helped me work out a plant-based diet for the dog that's really high in protein. And so the dog was on tofu and legumes and quinoa.
That's
and
really
some other
cool.
things. Yeah.
I love that.
And by doing this in 10 months, see, Dr. Peety promised me that it would happen in 12. It happened in 10 months. In 10 months, I lost 140 pounds. The dog lost 25 pounds. I got off all meds. I no longer had type 2 diabetes. I no longer had to use insulin. My A1C had dropped from 12 to 4.9. My glucose dropped from 300 to 100. And I mean, I just became a different person. My waist size dropped from 52 to 33. And it was like a miracle. I mean, it just, and so at the time I said, Dr. Peety, why isn't every doctor in America shouting this from the rooftop? I mean, rather than just all this stuff that just kind of keeps you on the verge of death, but still alive so people can, make money in the pharmaceutical industry or whatever. I mean, why isn't everybody recommending this if this works so well? And she didn't have the answer to that question either. So I actually went out on a quest. I decided that I was going to try to figure out the answer to that question myself. And so I enrolled in classes at my local community college. And at night school, over a couple of years, I took every class that one would ordinarily take as a prerequisite to get into medical school. And I'm talking about chemistry, organic chemistry, anatomy and physiology, like literally everything all the way through physics. And through this process, I not only learned how to read food labels and learn what chemicals were and what it meant and what, was safe to eat and, what was not safe to eat and the difference between organic and non-organic foods. And I learned how to do medical research and I learned how to read medical journals. And I developed a really deep interest in this. And for the first time in my life, I became qualified to really direct my own health care and to become informed in decisions that affected my health and my life. And I felt very confident by that. And I mean, it's worked out really well for me. And over a period of time, I just, I was healthy. The dog was healthy. My life changed. I became happy and feeling joy for the first time in my life. Not only just losing the weight, but within a couple of weeks after going on a plant-based diet, I began feeling better than I could ever remember feeling in my entire life. I mean, seriously, I felt so good. It was like I was high. I'd never felt that feeling before, of feeling that good, that healthy, that happy, that joyful. And over a period of time, it just struck me like a flash of light that that's what it was like to feel normal. And I'd never felt normal before in my entire life. And this was like the greatest gift that anybody could have possibly given to me. And it was all because I'd stopped eating animal products.
Yeah. I mean, and it's really cool, Eric, because like for you in your past, you had trouble sustaining any kind of weight loss. And, I think it's super important for people to understand, like when you eat like this, like once you reach the weight you're supposed to be at, your weight will be more sustainable than it's ever been. It's just amazing.
Once you're 100% full in, jump in with both feet into a whole food plant-based diet. This is everybody that I talk to, and I'm not alone on this. This happens for so many people. I'm actually in a secret internet group called the Missing Chins Run Club.
Oh, I'm familiar with them. They're amazing.
Yeah, and these are a group of about 30 guys who collectively have lost about 4,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. And some of these guys have lost over 250 pounds. I'm actually
they're amazing.
Yeah. And so this works for anybody. And the thing is, once you do hit your ideal weight, if you do this, your weight will drop until you hit your ideal weight, and then you'll stay there. And so I've been at this weight, my ideal weight, for about 8 years now. It's going on 8 years. And this is how I'm going to spend the rest of my life, is thin and happy and healthy.
It's really cool. And it's just amazing how much, obviously, going plant-based is incredible. And then you add the dog in, and then, Peety adds that level of like compassion and like thinking about other people that you didn't have at that time. And it's cool that whenever I talk to people, I'm like, you really need you need to find, wellness on a physical level and mental level and spiritual level. And it's, when you combine those things, like you can really make a transformation in your health. And like, you're somebody that really you really made all three of those changes. I mean, physically, mentally, spiritually. And I just think it's really amazing when you can see it all happen like that.
Yeah. And, I would really advise anybody, if you're sitting home alone and you're in my situation and, it looks like this is the end of the road, or you don't know what to do, or, you're just going to give up and die. I mean, if you go down to your local shelter and you adopt a dog, and don't get a puppy. Don't get a puppy. Puppies are cute for a reason, and puppies will tear up your house and eat your shoes and pull down your curtains, and they'll pee all over the place, and you get frustrated and you want to return them. Get an adult dog, at least an adolescent, if not a senior dog, because that dog, if you are lacking what I was lacking in my life, you'll form a bond with that dog of unconditional love, and it'll be more powerful than anything you've ever experienced before. And that dog will be so happy to see you, and he'll love you so much that it'll help you transform as a person, because it'll create that relationship that you're lacking right now. And so that's really what I'd strongly recommend to everybody is, if you don't have that relationship, go out and adopt a senior dog. And you know what? Ask for the dog that is the hardest to adopt, and that is really, has been in the shelter the longest, because that's the dog who's going to appreciate you the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree. And like, Eric, you were talking about how you really dove into all of those courses and like really just educating yourself as much as possible. Like, was it that want to like spread the message of just how powerful making those lifestyle changes could be that made you want to write your book in the first place, like after you took those courses?
Yeah. And because a number of things really shocked me. I was taking nutrition courses, the same type that, doctors might take in a community college. And I was figuring out that what they're really training you is they're not really training you on what is best for you to eat. They're training you on how to recognize the symptoms of chronic nutrition deficiencies, like, how to recognize the signs of scurvy and beriberi.
Right.
I swear to God, things that are in goiter, things that that aren't even in existence in the United States anymore. And I learned that, medical schools, only 1/4 of medical schools in the United States even offer a course in nutrition. And that what doctors are really trained on and they're really good at is chronic disease and trauma. So doctors are great at fixing broken bones and doing all this kind of thing. But, as far as like learning what to eat, they're not. They're not trained in that. So when in going to a doctor, if you say that you want to go on a plant-based diet and the doctor says, well, everybody should eat meat, then here's the thing. Get a different doctor. And if you Google on the internet plant-based doctors, you'll find like lots of resources on how to find a plant-based doctor like I did. And a doctor who's practicing lifestyle medicine rather than trying to cure individual symptoms associated with an underlying cause that they're not even recognizing, as was the case in my case. And that's what's important. And that's what, in my view, doctors should be doing.
Absolutely. And so that's really what inspired you to want to like dive in on your own book, just to get the message out there even more?
Yeah. So what happened with my book was I was, the shelter that I adopted Peety from called me, and I formed a really good friendship with the person in their marketing department who wrote these really cool blog posts for them. And she wrote one called Eddie the Terrible, and it was about a Chihuahua possessed by Satan. And you can actually still look it up. It was the funniest damn thing I've ever read. So I called her up, and this was my friend Finnegan. And I said, that's the funniest thing I've ever read. And she said, well, she said, well, somebody from Oprah magazine contacted her and asked whether they knew of anybody that had like a story about how, their life was saved by a dog or whatever. And so she said, well, would you like to talk to them? And I said, sure. So Oprah magazine published an article about me. And then after that, they said, well, we're going to come out with a video series to help people understand why helping animals helps people. And we'd like you to be in the first film that we produce. And I said, okay. So they sent out a film crew from Chicago, and I was living in Spokane, Washington at the time. These guys had all this fancy stuff and had these overhead drones and all these kind of things. It was just crazy. So they made a movie, a 7-minute film, actually filmed for 2 days. And it amazed me that they could reduce that down to 7 minutes, but they did. And in that 7 minutes, that film ended up getting about 100 million internet views.
So crazy.
In a few months. I mean, I went viral, and it was just like this crazy thing. I mean, I was getting tens of thousands of emails. I got over a dozen unsolicited marriage proposals. Just the weirdest, just the most amazing things. People offering your stuff. And so I had to get a publicist. And then an agent called me and asked me if I'd like to write a book. And I said, okay. So I wrote a book called Walking with Peety, the Dog Who Saved My Life, in which I really describe like a lot of things that I talk about here. Mm-hmm. So it's a book with an inspirational story, but also really practical advice on what I did step by step by step to go from 340 pounds to 180 pounds. And I just step by step all the way through. So if you read the book, it's a great story with practical information that you can follow to achieve the same results that I did if you're motivated to do so. And so, but the best thing that came out of that whole film was, when I was in high school, I had a high school girlfriend. We dated from age 15 to 17, and her name was Jay. And I hadn't seen her in 40 years because I went in the Army, like I said, and we lost touch for 40 years. And so she saw the film and she recognized me. So she contacted me and she said, hey. And I said, hey. And so within 3 days, we were back together.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And then we got married like 3 months later. And the coolest thing was she was 197 pounds at the time, size 20. And I said, if you do what I do, if you do what I tell you exactly, you will get off all of your pre-diabetes stuff and you will achieve your ideal weight in a year or less. And she didn't believe me either. And that's exactly what happened. So in 10 months, doing exactly what I did, and I kept a graph with her weekly weight results and everything. She went from 197 to 115 and from size 20 to size 2.
That's so crazy.
And
I love that.
she's prettier than when she was 16 years old. And I've got pictures of our junior prom to prove it.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. And like, I mean, anytime that, and it kind of goes back to like, you were saying, like, if a doctor's telling you that this isn't attainable, like to find a new doctor, but any doctor that empowers you enough to make you feel like you can help others achieve the same thing, like that's the kind of office that you want to be in, because now you're changing so many lives just because you found the education to like empower yourself, and now you can empower others. So, I mean, I'm sure that's just so rewarding when you get all of these messages in, and like people that are maybe in their 40s, 50s and up, or I mean, obviously even younger, but like most people 40s, 50s and up, they think that that's just what their health is going to be for the rest of their life. So whenever you hear a story like yours, I mean, it's life-changing because you have so much life left now.
I know, so I'm planning now to live to be 102 years old.
Love it.
And, within my lifetime, everybody's going to be doing this. And all we have to do is make eating animal products as uncool as it is to be a smoker in California. And if we can do those things, then everybody will follow suit because everybody wants to do what's trendy. And, this is the latest thing. And basically, this is a permanent solution that will work for anybody. This can reduce our national healthcare costs by up to 80%, 70 to 80%, by reducing chronic disease in about that proportion. Also, so many other benefits for the environment. And the chief benefit is just, animal kindness.
Right.
We eat in America 70 billion animals per year if you combine ocean sources and land-based sources of animals, about 70 billion animals per year. And it's destroying the environment. It's completely cruel and unnecessary because all of our sustenance, our health, is optimized with plant-based nutrition.
Absolutely. No, it's very well said and 100% agree. And just, Eric, I think all of the positive work you're doing is just amazing, and just excited for just more people to hear your story and read your book, because it really is amazing. And you might cry a little bit. Actually, I know you will. I'm sorry. but it really is just an amazing book, and you're doing such an amazing job, Eric. And like, so like, what plans do you have just for the future? Like, what are you currently working on, or just continue to promote your book and the positive message that you have?
So I got a couple of really cool things that have happened recently. And the first is that, I got laid off in November, and which was a good thing, because every time that I've ever lost a job in my life, it goes, oh, what am I going to do? And then like 30, 60 days later, you go, wow, that's the best thing that ever could have possibly happened to me. And that's what happened in this case. So I was selling industrial equipment. And so I decided, wow, maybe now this is an opportunity where I can do what I've always wanted to do in my whole life. Is there a way that I can find to make a living where I just talk about animal kindness and plant-based nutrition all day? And I found it. So I'm now director of philanthropy for the Southeast for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, awesome, which is an organization that tries to get animals out of, to end medical and scientific testing on lab animals, and to also promote plant-based nutrition. So my job is now talking about advocating for animal kindness and plant-based nutrition. And how could I be happier than that, right?
Right.
And then I'm also very pleased to announce that Netflix has just agreed to purchase my story and will be making a film from
that's amazing.
From Eric and Walking With Peety. So that should be in production this year and then released in 2019. So I'm absolutely thrilled about that, and the opportunity to continue to share the message with and help other people. That's
incredible. I can't wait to watch that film, because I know it's going to just be amazing and just spread so much positivity. So that's amazing, Eric. I'm extremely excited for you. And like, what is the best way, Eric, for people to keep up with everything that you're working on? So like social media, websites, all of that. So that way they can keep up.
I spend too much time on Facebook, and I'll friend anybody that's a real person on Facebook. So send a friend request or follow my public page, whichever you want to do. Or you can locate me on ericandpeety.com, ericandpeety.com.
Perfect. And then Eric, just closing question that I ask every guest, but if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's been your just biggest takeaway that you've had so far. You've probably already said it, but if you already, if you just had one piece of advice to give the audience, what would it be?
Go down to your local shelter and adopt a shelter dog. Don't buy a dog, adopt one from your local shelter. The dog will change your life and will give you the motivation to make you feel loved in a way that you've never felt before, and will help you to really decide to become the person that you've always wanted to be. And pair up with a plant-based medical professional, either an MD or an ND or any kind of doctor. It doesn't matter. If they're involved in nutrition and they're looking at science-based nutrition, then they're a good person to consult with. And those people will set you straight. And then if you do these things, then you've really got a shot. And if you commit to do these things, right? If you commit, you got to want to live. If you want to live and you commit to do these things and you really try, you will achieve the same results that I did. And you'll wake up a year from now and you'll be the happy, healthy, awesome person that you've always wanted to be.
That's perfect, Eric. Just thank you so much. I mean, your story is so amazing, and I loved having you. And if you guys are listening, please jump on Amazon or Audible, because there's also an audiobook version of his book. So either go buy the book or the audiobook and listen to it, because it's so amazing. And he goes into more detail on what we talked about today, and it's just an amazing book. But Eric, just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Casey. I appreciate being on your program.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Eric. I love the work he's doing, and his story is so amazing. So be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links, his website, and his book link that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Eric's information can be found on my website as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Eric, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.